Did you know that most people pay their credit card bills wrong? Even with a perfect payment history, your score might be 100 points lower than it should be. This mistake can cost you thousands in higher interest rates when you apply for mortgages and car loans. I promise that by the end of this video, you will not only understand when to pay your bill, but also the fundamentals of the billing cycle, whether credit utilization actually matters, and a powerful hack that will not only boost your credit score, but also maximize your card rewards. But first, let's understand what the heck is a billing cycle. A billing cycle is the period during which your bank calculates how much you owe them. It typically lasts 28 to 31 days. From day one or the opening date, your bank starts recording every transaction you make. On the closing date, when the cycle ends, the bank adds up all those purchases into one bill, your balance, and then sends you a statement. Let's look at a real statement, which you can usually find in your banking app. There are 6 critical elements you need to understand. First, the opening and closing dates, when your billing cycle starts and ends. Second, purchases and debits. This is how much you spent during the cycle. Payments, this is how much you paid. Then your total balance, how much you currently owe to the bank. The minimum payment, the smallest amount you must pay to avoid penalties. Finally, the due date. It's the last day when you need to pay at least the minimum payment, but preferably the full balance. Now let's use this exact statement as a real example. From opening to closing date, or from February 22nd to March 24th, I used my card, spent $8,500, and paid off $8,088. My total new balance was $383. Then, after the closing date, within 1 to 3 days, the bank sent me this statement, which shows how much I spend, how much I paid off, and how much I owe. It also shows me the due date, when I need to pay off that $383 so I don't get any interest charges. Usually you have 21 to 25 days after the cycle ends to pay off your balance in full if you don't want to get charged any interest. At the same time, after the closing date, the new cycle starts. Now, obviously, you have to pay off your balance. And there are 3 possible scenarios. If you don't have money to pay in full, which shouldn't have happened, don't use your credit card if you don't have money to pay it off. Then the bank will charge you interest. For example, if you have a $2,000 balance but you can only afford to pay $500, now you owe $1,500. The bank charges about 30% interest annually, which is ridiculously high. By the end of the year, that $1,500 becomes almost $2,000. With $450 in interest alone, that bought you absolutely nothing. But it's even worse when you miss the minimum payment. Then you'll not only pay the interest for the full balance, but also a late fee. Moreover, if you miss your minimum payment for 30 days, your score can drop by 100 points. I can't imagine how many months or even years it will take to rebuild it. And the last scenario is when you pay your balance in full before the due date. If you do this, nothing bad will happen, right? No interest charges, no credit score drop? Well, not always. There is one more crucial thing that happens after the closing date. When your billing cycle ends, your bank doesn't just send you a statement, it also takes a snapshot of your balance and reports it to the credit bureaus. The bureaus immediately calculate something called utilization, the percentage of your credit limit you're using when that snapshot is taken. To calculate it, you must take your balance, divide it by your credit limit, and multiply it by 100. For example, if your credit limit is $1,000 and your balance at closing is $700, your utilization is 70%. But if your balance is $100, then your utilization is 10%. Note that when calculating utilization, credit bureaus not only look at each of your cards individually, they also use your total balance and credit limit across all cards. And this total utilization is more important than the individual, which means that if you open a credit card that doubles your credit limit, it will automatically make your utilization 2 times lower. But the question is, why does it even matter? To begin with, utilization affects 30% of your credit score, which is a lot. And even though people on the internet are saying that you must keep it under 30%, that's a lie. Here is my credit score, which dropped by 80 points when I increased my utilization from 2% to 14%. Yes, it bounced back when I decreased my utilization back to 2%. But it's only because credit bureaus still use old scores. In the past, utilization didn't have memory. It was recalculated fresh each month. So you could have 100% utilization for years, then lower it to 10% right before applying for a loan, and your score would bounce back. But now, with the current FICO Score 10T and Vantage Score 4.0, they look at the past 24 months. You won't be able to do the same trick anymore. And it's just a matter of time before everyone starts using newer scores. So my rule of thumb is to keep your utilization under 5%. The lower, the better. This creates a painful dilemma. If I can only use 5% of my credit limit to maintain a good score, what about all those rewards? If my total credit limit across all cards is $10,000, am I really limited to spending just $500 per month on my cards to keep my utilization under 5%? With 3% cashback, that's just $15 in monthly rewards instead of the $300 I could be earning. I am losing $3,240 each year. It feels like we have to choose between good credit and good rewards. But there is a solution. And it is really simple. Pay off your balance before the closing date, not just before the due date. Here's why this works. Credit bureaus only see the balance your bank reports to them on the closing date. So even if I spend $5,000 throughout the month and then pay it off before the closing date, the bank will report a zero balance to the credit bureaus, and my utilization will be zero. That's exactly what I did here. I spent $8,500 during the month, and with a $12,500 credit limit, my utilization would normally be almost 70%, which is terrible for your credit score. But I paid off $8,000 before the closing date. This reduced my reported balance to just $400, bringing my utilization down to only 3%. Plus, it allowed me to earn all the rewards I needed without fear of damaging my credit. The key insight is that your bank doesn't care how much you spend during the month. It means that if your expenses exceed your limit, but you still want to earn all rewards, you can max out your card more than once a month. For example, if you can spend $10,000 but your card has a $5,000 limit, it's okay to max it out once, pay it off, and then do the same one more time. Unless you do this every 2 days, which will be considered a credit cycling, nothing bad will happen. Just make sure to avoid maxing out your card immediately after the closing date, as we don't know exactly when the report is sent. Give yourself a 3-day buffer before and after the closing date. Eventually, you'll be able to raise your credit limit to the point where these schemes are useless. Then you can set up an autopay. It's super convenient, and that's exactly what I do. To sum up what we've learned, if your utilization is already under 5%, just pay off your balance in full before the due date. If it is higher than 5% and you want to maximize rewards, pay before the closing date. And if your expenses exceed your limit, pay multiple times during the cycle. So there you have it. A clear answer to the question, when should I pay my card? And if this video was helpful, you can like it and subscribe to my channel. This will help me a lot.